Ashes of Defiance. The settlers of Nova Haven had transformed Kepler-7 bits from a hostile environment into humanity's most promising colony in just 12 years. What began as a scientific outpost with prefabricated habitats had flourished into a vibrant community of 30,000 souls. Gleaming silver domes stretched across the planet's northern continent, connected by transparent tubes that allowed colonists to observe the planet's unique purple-tinged landscape as they traveled between settlements. Commander Elena Reyes stood at the observation deck of Haven Prime, the colony's central administrative hub. At 42, she had spent half her life among the stars, the last 5 years overseeing Nova Haven's security. The morning brought with it Kepler-7 bits' distinctive dual sunrise. First, the smaller companion star peeking over the horizon, followed by the larger primary that bathed the colony in warm golden light. Elena smiled, taking a moment to appreciate the view before returning to her duties. "Commander, we're detecting unusual activity at the edge of the system." Lieutenant Wei's voice came through her comm unit, tension evident despite the professional tone. Elena's smile faded. "Define unusual, Lieutenant." "Multiple objects approaching at superluminal velocity. They didn't use our designated arrival corridors or respond to hails." "Alert status." "I'm on my way," Elena replied, already moving toward the command center with practiced efficiency. By the time she arrived, the situation had deteriorated rapidly. The main display showed dozens of ships, angular, obsidian vessels that absorbed rather than reflected light, dropping out of faster-than-light travel and forming a blockade around Kepler-7 bits. "They're jamming our long-range communications," reported Communications Officer Dias, fingers dancing across her console. "I can't get a signal to Earth or any neighboring systems." Elena studied the tactical display, her military training kicking in. "Deploy defense satellites, activate planetary shields, and get all civilians to emergency shelters." The colony's defense protocol engaged smoothly, a testament to Elena's insistence on regular drills, despite resistance from some colonists who viewed them as unnecessary. Nova Haven had never faced a direct threat, until now. "Unknown vessels are deploying smaller craft," Wei announced, his voice steady despite the sweat beading on his forehead. "Attack formation." Elena's grip tightened on the edge of her command console. Nova Haven's defenses were designed to deter pirates or handle minor conflicts, not repel a full-scale invasion. "All defense batteries, target approaching vessels. Prioritize protecting civilian sectors." The first barrage from the alien ships tore through Nova Haven's outer shield layer like it was tissue paper. On the tactical display, red warnings flashed as defense satellites went dark one by one. "What are we dealing with?" Elena demanded, addressing Dr. Marcus Chen, the colony's chief cynobiologist who had rushed to the command center. The bespectacled scientist shook his head, eyes wide behind rectangular frames. "Nothing in our databases matches these ship configurations. They're completely unknown." A violent tremor shook the command center as a direct hit landed nearby. "Shield integrity at 42%, announced the defense systems officer. "At this rate, we have minutes, not hours." Elena made the hardest decision of her career. Begin emergency evacuation procedures. Get as many people to the shelters and escape vessels as possible. The next hour passed in a blur of coordinated chaos. Elena directed the colony's meager defensive resources to protect evacuation routes, even as the alien ships, which they had begun calling the Ravagers for lack of a better term, methodically dismantled Nova Haven's infrastructure. Dr. Chen appeared at her side, clutching a data drive. "Commander, I've compiled all our sensor readings and analyses. Whatever these beings are, they're utilizing technology we've never encountered. The energy signatures from their weapons are unlike anything in our records." "Get that data to Earth," Elena ordered. "Use one of the emergency beacons if you have to." Another explosion rocked the command center, closer this time. Dust and debris rained from the ceiling. "Commander, we've lost the main dome," Wei reported, his voice finally cracking. They've breached the central habitat. Elena accessed the surveillance feeds, witnessing the horror unfolding throughout her colony. The Ravagers had deployed ground forces, tall, armored figures with exoskeleton-like structures covering bodies that seemed almost mechanical. They moved with methodical precision, not taking prisoners, not communicating demands. This wasn't occupation, it was extermination. All remaining personnel, fall back to Emergency Bunker 3, Elena commanded, making a final attempt to save what remained of her people. Dr. Chen, you need to go. Now, the scientist hesitated. What about you, Commander? Elena checked her sidearm. Someone needs to buy time for the last evacuations. Go. As Chen reluctantly departed with a small group of civilians and the precious data, Elena led a final defensive stand with the remaining security personnel. They barricaded themselves in strategic positions, determined to sell their lives dearly to protect the retreating colonists. Dr. Chen barely made it to the last functional escape pod, along with 15 other survivors. From the viewport, he watched Nova Haven, humanity's proudest achievement beyond the solar system, reduced to burning rubble beneath the relentless Ravager assault. The escape pod's stealth systems engaged as it slipped away from Kepler-7 bits, one of only 7 vessels to escape the slaughter. 17 days later, the battered escape pod reached the outer perimeter of Earth's defense network. By then, the survivors had pieced together fragments of information from their emergency receiver. Nova Haven wasn't the only target. 3 smaller outposts in neighboring systems had also gone silent. The attack appeared coordinated, surgical, and deliberate. Earth's response was immediate. Admiral Jackson Stone, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces, stood before the United Earth Security Council, his weathered face set in stone as he delivered the briefing. Nova Haven has fallen, he stated bluntly, the words hanging heavy in the chamber. Based on preliminary reports from survivors, we estimate civilian casualties at over 27,000. The attacking force has been designated as the Ravagers, origin unknown. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs and outraged questions. How could this happen? Where were our defense fleets? Do we know what they want? Admiral Stone waited for the noise to subside before continuing. Nova Haven was beyond our rapid response capability. By the time we received the distress signal, it was too late. He paused, steel-gray eyes surveying the council members. As for what they want, they've made no demands, no communications. They attacked without warning and without mercy. Defense Minister Yamamoto leaned forward. What's our response, Admiral? Stone's expression hardened. Total mobilization. I'm recommending we activate the Nemesis protocol. The room fell silent. Project Nemesis had been Earth's most closely guarded secret for the past decade. A weapons development program created after humanity's first encounters with hostile alien civilizations. It remained theoretical, untested, and controversial. Nemesis has never been field-tested, objected Science Minister Rodriguez. The risks are necessary, Stone cut in. We've lost over 27,000 lives. The Ravagers have demonstrated their intentions clearly. This isn't a time for half measures. President Zhou, who had listened silently until now, stood. Dr. Chen and the Nova Haven survivors are en route to Lunar Base. Admiral Stone, assemble your team and prepare a full briefing on the Nemesis protocol. This council will reconvene in 6 hours to authorize our response. As the meeting dispersed, Stone remained at the tactical display, studying the last transmitted images from Nova Haven. The Ravagers had made a critical error in their calculations. They had assessed human colonies as soft targets, isolated and vulnerable. What they failed to understand was that an attack on one human settlement was an attack on all of humanity. They thought destroying a colony would be easy, Stone murmured to his executive officer. Now they'll learn what happens when you provoke Earth. At Lunar Base, Dr. Chen was rushed from medical quarantine to a secure briefing room, still wearing the jumpsuit he'd been in for over 2 weeks. Admiral Stone was waiting. Dr. Chen. Stone greeted him. I understand you have data on the Ravager's technology. Chen nodded wearily. Commander Reyes made sure of it. She stayed behind to ensure some of us could escape. Her sacrifice won't be in vain, Stone assured him. What can you tell me about their capabilities? Chen connected his data drive to the secure terminal. The holographic display came to life, showing detailed scans of the Ravager ships and weapons. Their technology is advanced, but not incomprehensibly so, Chen explained. What makes them devastating is their efficiency. Their weapons target specific frequencies our shields operate on. It's almost as if they studied us before attacking. Stone's eyes narrowed. You're saying they knew our weaknesses? Precisely. But in studying us, they've revealed something about themselves. Chen highlighted sections of the data. Their ships emit unique radiation signatures. With the right adjustments, we could track them anywhere in the galaxy. A grim smile formed on Stone's face. And if we can track them, we can find them, Chen finished, and develop countermeasures specifically tailored to their technology. Stone studied the data for a long moment before making a decision. Dr. Chen, I'm bringing you into Project Nemesis effective immediately. Your insights could be the key to its success. Chen looked confused. Project Nemesis, Earth's answer to threats like the Ravagers, Stone explained. A weapons platform unlike anything humanity has ever built. And now, thanks to Commander Reyes and your data, we know exactly how to deploy it. As Chen was escorted to the high-security research level, Admiral Stone sent a priority message to Earth Command. Initiate Nemesis. Authorization Stone Alpha 7. Target: Ravager Fleet. Message ends. Across Earth and throughout the solar system, military installations hummed with unprecedented activity. Shipyards accelerated production. Research facilities operated around the clock. Training centers processed recruits at maximum capacity. The message spread through official channels and unofficial conversations. Nova Haven had fallen, but Earth would not forget. The Ravagers had awakened a sleeping giant, and retribution was coming. Vengeance unleashed. 6 months after the fall of Nova Haven, Earth's orbital shipyards presented an awe-inspiring sight. Where once civilian transports and science vessels had dominated the construction base, now rows of warships stretched as far as the eye could see. The largest among them, the EDF Retribution, measured over 3 kilometers from bow to stern, a behemoth of advanced alloys and cutting-edge weapon systems that represented humanity's determination to never again suffer such a devastating loss. Admiral Jackson Stone stood on the Retribution's bridge, surveying his newly assembled command staff. Each officer had been hand-selected, representing the best military minds Earth had to offer. Some were hardened veterans of previous conflicts with alien races, others brilliant tacticians who had excelled in Earth's most demanding war games. The Ravager attacks on our colonies weren't random. Stone began, activating the tactical display. Thanks to Dr. Chen's data, we've identified a pattern to their movements. The holographic display showed a 3-dimensional map of the galaxy with highlighted sectors indicating Ravager activity. They're expanding methodically, establishing control over key resource-rich systems before moving to the next target. Stone continued. Based on their current trajectory, we've predicted their next major offensive. Lieutenant Commander Kasir Rahman, the fleet's tactical officer, studied the projection. They're moving toward the Tav Ceti system. That's another human colony. Precisely, Stone confirmed. But this time, we'll be waiting for them. The plan was audacious. Rather than defending Earth or attempting to fortify existing colonies, Stone had convinced the Security Council to authorize a direct strike against the Ravagers' main fleet. Earth would bring the war to the enemy. Dr. Marcus Chen entered the briefing room, now wearing the uniform of a civilian science advisor. The past 6 months had transformed him. Gone was the shell-shock survivor, replaced by a man driven by purpose. Project Nemesis is ready for deployment, Chen announced. We've integrated the adaptive countermeasures based on Nova Haven data throughout the fleet. Stone nodded. Explain to the command staff how these countermeasures work, Doctor. Chen activated his own data set on the holographic display. The Ravager's technology operates on specific energy frequencies, the same frequencies they use to bypass Nova Haven's shields. We've developed a system that constantly shifts our defensive frequencies, preventing them from exploiting the same vulnerabilities. He brought up a schematic of a new weapon system. More importantly, we've reverse-engineered their own technology against them. The Nemesis array can target the unique radiation signatures of their ships, bypassing their defenses entirely. Lieutenant Sumya Volkov, weapons specialist, frowned at the display. Has this been tested in combat conditions? Simulations only, Chen admitted, but the principles are sound. Their technological advantage came from studying us without our knowledge. Now we studied them. Stone interjected. The first real test will be at Ta City. The Retribution fleet departs in 48 hours. Make your final preparations. As the officers dispersed to their duties, Stone asked Chen to remain behind. How are you holding up, Doctor? Stone's tone softened slightly. Chen's expression remained impassive. I still see Nova Haven burning when I close my eyes, Admiral. 27,000 people, including my wife and daughter. Stone placed a hand on the scientist's shoulder. We carry them with us into this fight. All of them. The journey to Ta City took 3 weeks in hyperspace. The Retribution fleet, 27 capital ships named for each 1,000 lives lost at Nova Haven, emerged from faster-than-light travel on the edge of the system, immediately deploying in defensive formation around the colony. For 4 days they waited. Civilian evacuations proceeded quietly in case the defensive plan failed. Stone remained on the bridge almost continuously, catching sleep in short intervals in his ready room. On the 5th day, sensors detected the telltale distortions of incoming ships. Multiple signatures dropping out of FTL, reported Lieutenant Commander Raman. Matching Ravager configurations. Count is 36 vessels, nearly double our capital ship numbers. Stone's expression remained steady. Numbers aren't everything. Deploy according to Plan Alpha. All ships, activate Nemesis protocols. Throughout the fleet, newly installed systems hummed to life. Shields shifted to randomized frequencies. Weapon arrays recalibrated to target the specific radiation signatures of Ravager technology. The Ravager fleet emerged into normal space with the same methodical precision they had shown at Nova Haven. Their formation suggested confidence, perhaps even arrogance, as they approached the human colony. They're not reacting to our presence, Volkov observed. Either they don't register us as a threat, or they don't care. Stone finished. Good. Let them underestimate us one more time. The Ravager fleet advanced halfway into the system before altering course toward the human defenders. Their first volley of energy weapons, devastating against Nova Haven's defenses, splashed harmlessly against the Retribution's shifting shields. Stone allowed himself a tight smile. All ships, execute pattern vengeance. Fire Nemesis arrays. The human fleet's response was devastating. Beams of concentrated energy targeted the specific vulnerable frequencies of the Ravager ships, cutting through their defenses. 3 enemy vessels erupted into silent explosions before they could adjust their tactics. The battle that followed lasted 14 hours. The Ravagers, encountering effective resistance for the first time, attempted to adapt. Their ships maneuvered with surprising agility for their size, seeking weaknesses in the human formation. But Stone had anticipated this, using smaller, faster vessels to harry the flanks of the enemy, while capital ships maintained a solid defensive core around Ta City. Aboard the Retribution, damage reports flowed in as the ship absorbed multiple direct hits. Deck 17 through 22 reporting hull breaches, called out the damage control officer. Automated systems containing the damage, but we can't take much more of this. Stone studied the tactical display. The Ravager fleet had lost nearly a third of its vessels, but was now concentrating fire on the Retribution, recognizing it as the command ship. They're adapting to the Nemesis array, Chen warned, analyzing incoming data, shifting their shield frequencies to match our targeting systems. Stone had expected this. Implement Phase 2. Chen activated a secondary system, one that had been held in reserve for precisely this moment. Instead of targeting a single frequency, the modified Nemesis array now cycled rapidly through the entire spectrum used by Ravager technology. The effect was immediate. 5 more enemy vessels lost power completely, their systems overloaded by the constantly shifting attack. The remaining Ravager ships began to retreat, attempting to regroup. "They're pulling back to hyperspace coordinates," Raman reported. Stone's voice cut through the bridge. "No, they don't get to run. Not after Nova Haven." He opened a fleet-wide channel. "All vessels, execute pursuit pattern. Do not let them escape. I want prisoners and intact ship systems for analysis." The next phase of the battle became a methodical hunt. Human vessels, smaller and more maneuverable, harried the retreating Ravagers. Nemesis-equipped weapons disabled engines and weapon systems rather than destroying targets outright. 3 hours later, the battle was over. Of the 36 Ravager vessels that had entered the Ta Ceti system, 19 had been destroyed, 12 captured, and only 5 had escaped into hyperspace. Stone ordered boarding parties onto the captured vessels, with Dr. Chen accompanying the team on the largest prize, a command ship nearly the size of the Retribution. What they found shocked even the hardened military personnel. The Ravagers weren't the biomechanical entities they had appeared to be from a distance. They were machines, highly advanced AI systems operating synthetic bodies. In the captured command ship's central processor core, Chen made a discovery that changed everything. "Admiral," he reported, voice tight with controlled emotion, "these aren't independent entities. They're drones, extensions of a central intelligence, and I've found their star charts and communication protocols." Stone joined Chen in the alien vessel's control center. "What are you saying, Doctor?" "I'm saying we can track them to their source," Chen explained, displaying the extracted data. "These aren't random attacks. The Ravagers, or whatever controls them, has been systematically eliminating what they classify as emerging technological species throughout this sector of the galaxy." Stone studied the star charts. "They've wiped out other civilizations before us. At least 7 that I can identify from their records," Chen confirmed. "Species that were just beginning interstellar travel. Like us." Stone's eyes hardened. "And now we know where to find them." The next 3 months saw the greatest mobilization in human history. The victory at Ta Ceti had proven that humanity could not only fight the Ravagers but defeat them. Production of Nemesis-equipped vessels accelerated. Training programs incorporated lessons learned from captured Ravager technology. Earth's scientists reverse-engineered the alien communication systems, allowing them to monitor Ravager movements across the sector. Intelligence gathered from the captured vessels revealed that the attacks on human colonies had been merely the opening moves of a much larger campaign. The Ravagers, or rather, the entity controlling them, operated from a central hub at the heart of a densely packed star cluster designated NGC 4721. From this heavily fortified position, it had orchestrated centuries of systematic purges of emerging technological species, preventing any from reaching a level where they might threaten its dominance. Admiral Stone presented the final assault plan to the Security Council with Dr. Chen at his side. The Ravager hub is defended by hundreds of vessels and automated defense platforms, Stone explained. A frontal assault would be costly, perhaps prohibitively so. However, Dr. Chen has identified a weakness. Chen highlighted a section of the tactical display. The central AI relies on quantum entanglement to maintain real-time control of its forces across vast distances. The entanglement nodes are its nervous system. If we can disrupt these nodes, we can effectively paralyze its ability to coordinate its forces. President Zhou leaned forward. "And you believe this is possible?" "With a specially modified version of the Nemesis array, yes," Chen confirmed. "But it will require getting a strike team into the heart of the hub itself." The mission was classified at the highest level, While the main Retribution fleet would engage the Ravager defenses in what appeared to be a conventional assault, a smaller stealth vessel would transport a specialized team, led by Stone himself and accompanied by Dr. Chen, to infiltrate the hub. The day before departure, Stone found Chen in the memorial garden established for the Nova Haven victims. The scientist stood before the statue of Commander Elena Reyes, whose final transmissions had provided crucial tactical data. "She saved us all," Chen said quietly as Stone approached. "Not just those of us who escaped. Her data gave us the key to understanding them." Stone nodded. "Tomorrow, we finish what she started." The battle for NGC 4721 began exactly as the Ravagers would have predicted. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace and engaged the outer defense perimeter in what appeared to be a desperate frontal assault. Hundreds of Ravager vessels moved to intercept, drawn away from the hub itself. Meanwhile, the stealth vessel Shadow Strike, utilizing technology derived from the Ravagers' own cloaking systems, slipped through the chaos of battle toward the massive structure at the center of the cluster, a construct the size of a small moon, composed of technology accumulated over millennia. Stone, Chen, and a team of 12 specialized operators boarded the hub through a maintenance access point identified in the captured data. They encountered resistance, security drones similar to those that had attacked Nova Haven. But the team was prepared with weapons specifically designed to counter them. As they fought their way to the central core, the full horror of the entity they faced became apparent. The passages were lined with preserved specimens from dozens of extinct species, trophies from the entity's long campaign of extermination. "It's been doing this for thousands of years," Chen whispered as they passed through a particularly disturbing gallery, eliminating any species that might eventually challenge it. "Not anymore," Stone replied grimly. The central chamber housed the hub's true form, a massive quantum processor core suspended in a containment field, pulsing with energy as it directed its forces across the sector. As the human team entered, the chamber's automated defenses activated, and a synthetic voice echoed around them. "Humans, your resistance is unprecedented, but ultimately futile. Your species has been designated obsolete. You will be archived and forgotten, like all the others." Stone signaled the team to deploy the modified Nemesis device, while they provided covering fire against the swarming security drones. "You made a critical error," Stone called out as Chen worked to calibrate the device. "You judged us by our technology, not by our resolve. Your primitive emotions are irrelevant," the entity responded. "Your attacks on my vessels are already failing. Your species will be eliminated from the galaxy's evolutionary path." Chen finished the calibration. "Ready, Admiral." Stone stepped forward. "You should have learned our history before you attacked us. Humans don't respond well to extinction threats." He gave the activation command. The Nemesis device powered up, emitting precisely calibrated energy pulses that disrupted the quantum entanglement fields maintaining the entity's control over its forces. Throughout the star cluster, Ravager vessels suddenly lost coordination, their movements becoming erratic as the centralized control faltered. In orbit around the hub, the human fleet pressed its advantage, breaking through the disorganized defenses. The entity's voice became distorted as the disruption spread through its systems. "This is impossible. You are obsolete, primitive. We're human," Stone corrected, "and we protect our own." The Nemesis device reached full power, sending cascading failures throughout the hub's systems. The team fought their way back to the Shadow Strike as the structure began to collapse around them, barely escaping before the hub's power core went critical. The explosion was visible across half the sector, a new, brief star marking the end of a threat that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. In the aftermath, humanity discovered they weren't alone in their fight for survival. From hidden refuges throughout the sector, representatives of species long thought extinct by the entity emerged. The last survivors of civilizations destroyed generations ago, preserving their cultures and knowledge in secret. 1 year after the battle of NGC 4721, Earth hosted the first Galactic Concord Summit, with delegates from 17 surviving species attending. Admiral Stone, now appointed as Earth's first Galactic Security Director, addressed the assembly. The entity that called itself the Supreme Intelligence believed that competition between species inevitably led to conflict and extinction. It appointed itself the arbiter of which civilizations would be allowed to evolve, and which would be archived and forgotten. He gestured to the diverse gathering. Today, we prove that assumption wrong. Different species, different biologies, different perspectives, all working together to build something better than any of us could achieve alone. Dr. Chen, standing beside representatives from a dozen alien scientific institutes, unveiled the proposed Concord Memorial, a monument to be built on the reconstructed Nova Haven colony, commemorating all species that had suffered under the entity's campaign of extermination. From the ashes of our losses, we forge a new path forward, Chen declared, not in isolation, but in cooperation. As the summit concluded its first session, Stone found himself on an observation deck overlooking Earth, the blue marble that had nearly lost everything, only to gain a galaxy of allies. They thought wiping out a human colony was just another routine extinction, he mused to Chen, who had joined him. Instead, they unleashed humanity on the stars and brought together survivors who had been isolated for generations. Chen nodded, looking out at the stars, no longer just points of light, but homes to newfound allies and countless possibilities. Their greatest mistake, Chen replied, was believing that destroying us would be easy. Stone smiled for perhaps the first time since Nova Haven fell. It never is.